Good morning. My name is Terry Hall, for the record, and I am the founder and director of the San Antonio Toll Party. We are here today because as an individual citizen, as well as my organization, and then all of these folks here who are individual voters in the District 73 for House District 73, we have grave concerns over what happened in the re-election race for State Representative Nathan Macias. It's certainly no secret that our organization endorsed him, and all the voters standing behind you are his supporters, no doubt. But I want to just walk you through first what we do know as facts of what has happened so far in this race on election night. The first fact is that the polls closed at 7 p.m. and the final box to be counted in Gillespie County was missing and unaccounted for several hours after the polls closed. And it was not finally reported until roughly 6 to 6.5 hours after the first 6 precinct totals were given. The final results were finally posted after 4 a.m., with the last precinct remaining to report being Precinct 5 of Gillespie in the final 4 hours. So that means that last box took 4 hours to count in a very small precinct. The second fact, members of the counting team in Gillespie County took over 4 hours to hand count 160 copied paper ballots, which changed the outcome of a 58-vote win for Nathan Macias to a 38-vote win for Doug Miller. The third fact, members of the original counting team in Gillespie County included Republican Party Chair Pauline Cusack, who has openly opposed Representative Macias since the last election and was repeatedly on the phone with Nathan Macias' former opponent and former state rep Carter Castile during this entire process. She was also reported as having conversed with Doug Miller supporters as to the number of votes needed to win. Dave Campbell and his wife Debbie, who also openly opposed Representative Macias, contributed to Miller's campaign and held signs for Mr. Miller on Election Day, were also part of this original counting team, along with, we heard stories that it's Mr. Miller's brother-in-law and his wife, even relatives, were part of the counting team. The combined facts show that Representative Macias was in the lead before these final ballots were counted. The final ballots were highly suspect due to the hours that they were unaccounted for, the fact that they were Xerox copies of ballots, that the turnout for this precinct was much higher than in any other precinct in Gillespie County, and that the ballots, when received, were left unattended and were initially received and counted by known enemies of State Representative Nathan Macias and known supporters of Doug Miller. It is fundamental to any democracy that the integrity of our elections are protected and that the voters can have confidence that we have a legitimate state representative representing our district. And I think you'll see that you'll have head shaking that we agree that there's something not right here, something gravely wrong. This is a Texas-sized election. There's a lot on the line. And we want to have confidence that this election was legitimate. We are calling and, in fact, demanding that the Secretary of State intervene. It is clear that there was, at minimum, election irregularities, voter irregularities that need to be investigated, and at worst, dare we say, voter fraud. Clearly the motive was there to have people who were counting these ballots be actually Miller supporters. We are supposed to have unbiased election clerks handling all of our ballots. And the fact that they were unaccounted for is also very disturbing. Really, I was there election night when these reports were coming in from the actual poll workers on the ground in Gillespie County. And the more we heard, the more outraged I became and we became as supporters and voters for Nathan Macias. Something's not right here. Unfortunately, this very dirty campaign has continued on in something that the voters can't trust. So we're asking that the Secretary of State intervene, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Without that last box, do we know what the vote was?
My understanding was that it was a 58-vote lead for Mr. Macias, and that it ended up being a 38-vote win for Doug Miller.
At the end of the night,
it was 14,000 some odd votes for Mr. Miller and 14,000 some odd votes for Mr. Macias. I don't know the exact vote totals. The Secretary of State's website does have that for you, but the only difference was a 38 vote difference at the end of the day.
Is there an automatic recount?
Well, I don't believe it's automatic, but yes, I understand that the Macias campaign has called for a recount at minimum, but this really goes beyond triggering a recount. This is about voter irregularities and the integrity of our elections. And if the people can't trust what's happened in a closed door with 6 hours unsupervised by any poll workers from the Macias campaign, because they're by law allowed to have both sides, the campaign is allowed to have poll workers, poll watchers there. And Mr. Macias' poll watcher was not allowed to even get access to the people who were counting the ballots for many hours. And so who knows what happened there, and the fact that there could possibly even be Doug Miller's relatives having been in there counting these votes, and we already know that known enemies to Nathan Macias were in there as part of the counting team. And it's inexplicable to me how former State Representative Carter Castile should be on the phone with the Republican Party chair when votes were being counted. It's pretty clear here that there's some sinister motives, and the voters deserve justice in this. And we need to believe in the integrity of our voting system. A democracy, the foundation of representative government is to know that when we cast a ballot that it's going to be counted, and that there's not going to be ballot box stuffing, there's not going to be people behind closed doors fishing for votes. We need to be able to trust that this election is legitimate, and if it's not, then we'll have an illegitimate state representative. So I don't know if y'all... Yes, sir.
Yes, we've heard reports that there was something about Xerox votes being actually counted.
That's right.
On the actual votes themselves. Could you speak to that?
What we heard directly from the poll watcher on the ground from Gillespie County from the Macias campaign on election night as things were coming in, that there were in fact Xerox copies of paper ballots that were being counted and used as legitimate ballots in this campaign. I am not familiar enough with election law to know if that's even a legal procedure, and if those can even be counted as legitimate at this point. But you can be assured the recount is already under, the process for that has already been called to get the recount underway. But these are voter irregularities where the Secretary of State needs to kick this up a notch. This is the Texas-sized mistake.
You already have feedback from the Secretary of State?
No, not at this point. We're just, as citizens, asking. As individuals, we are absolutely doing that. And, of course, we've asked our supporters under the San Antonio Toll Party to do the same.
What's your next step from here, then?
I would say our next step is to be watchdogs for the process and to see what's going to happen. We'll kick up our outrage a few notches if need be to make sure that the right people are getting involved and that we have election integrity withheld and protected in District 73. But all the voters deserve that, whether you're a Mr. Miller supporter or a Representative Macias supporter. We all deserve to know that this was a legitimate election and that there were not any illegitimate ballots counted.
Do you know how much higher the turnout was
I don't know the specific percentages. Does anyone remember that?
I believe that precinct had a 125% increase, and the average in Gillespie County was 44% increase.
So the average was 44% increase, and this one was well over that, 140 something? 125%.
Don Johnson.
It was also their election night.
The fact that there was a contested battle, do you think some of the issues here are the ones that are at the basis of he has to win 5 out of 2? I mean, there's certain issues you feel that are really...
I do. I personally took great offense. Even though our group officially is nonpartisan, I happen to be a Republican, and I found it absolutely repugnant that a Republican would race bait and make ethnic slurs about my state representative, who happens to be Hispanic.
Amen.
I find that deplorable in this campaign. It was totally uncalled for, and in fact, the ads that Mr. Miller ran were based on absolute falsehoods. Nothing could be further from the truth. The word illegal immigration was not even in the bill. Mr. Macias voted to protect every citizen's due process rights, and that's what that bill was about. And he ran false advertisements that gave the impression that he sympathized with illegal immigrants over residents in his district. And I just think that that's outrageous. And so I do think that this whole campaign was based on, from Mr. Miller's side, was based on lies. He threw the first punch, and this just seems like it's all in keeping with a very nasty campaign that was led by Doug Miller.
The toll issue is involved in that too?
You know, it was definitely an issue for us. We obviously endorsed Mr. Macias. He was one of our stalwart heroes on the toll issue in the legislature. But Mr. Miller tried to say that he was also anti-toll. So when you have two candidates that are saying they're the same, I don't know that that was the key issue in this race. I really think it had to do with the illegal immigration and the false advertising that the Miller campaign did. I think it was a low blow, and I think that the ethnic slurs coming from a Republican on the only elected Hispanic Republican in the state legislature is absolutely below the belt, and it's uncalled for, and it makes me ashamed of my party and ashamed of Doug Miller for what he did. I think it was totally repugnant. So I'm sure if y'all want to get some individual, there are folks that are willing to talk with you. So that'll conclude our official statement, or do you want some crowd shots? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to do
Okay.
some crowd shots.
Okay, that's fine. Absolutely. Anything we need to add? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Doug Miller has a proven track record of fraud and cheating. He, 11 days before the official campaign season began, he put up a number of signs, numbering above 20 signs, 4x8 signs, illegally. We complained about that to a local judge, and they issued a court date well after the end of the campaign season, and nothing was done to remove those signs, to fine him. He knows the rules. He's been in politics for a long time. He knows the rules, and he knowingly did that to try to get a leading edge. I believe that the judge may have been influenced because the Good Old Boy Club, which he is well a part of, the Good Old Boy Club can absolutely destroy your business in this area. Take our former mayor, Adam Court, for example. Carter Castile, I guess, got wires crossed with Adam Court, and his business was destroyed when she called all of her cronies to remove their printing from his company. So it's really just, Doug Miller has a proven track record of cheating, fraud, and he's going to do anything he can to win.
My question, what was the judge's name?
I don't have that on hand, I'm sorry. We're going to look that up, though, and find out exactly when the date is, because that has a lot of influence on proving that he has already attempted to electioneer this.
And your name is?
Daniel Pratt.
I might add, too, that we also have had reports that Comal County Commissioner Jan Kennedy was also on the phone repeatedly with Pauline Cusack during the vote counts. And I'm not sure why a Comal County Commissioner has anything to do with Gillespie County elections, but that seems awfully suspicious as well.
That violates some state elections.
I just think it's unethical, if nothing else. I'm not sure why a Comal County Commissioner should be on the phone with those who are counting ballots in the final determining ballots that will determine the outcome of the race. And these are not people who have supported State Representative Macias, so it just, something doesn't smell right and it doesn't add up. So we're asking the Secretary of State to take a look at it. No, not at this time that I'm aware of. Absolutely, yes, but nothing yet that we've heard back from them. So, any other questions? I don't think you have to be a Gillespie County resident because District 73 represents 4 counties. So do we have any Gillespie County folks that came down? It's a long drive. It's a long ways. But we're from all various counties. We all come out, or? Bernie. We have some Kendall. And what's that? Kendall and anyone else from... And Bandera's quite a ways away, too. But that's the whole point, is that we're being disenfranchised by what happened in Gillespie County. And so it affects everybody in the district, not just those in that precinct or even in Gillespie County itself. So that's why we're...
So none of these, there's not a person here that was in Gillespie County election?
No.
So nobody here has first-hand knowledge?
No, sir. We only heard on the phone. We were listening to Nathan's workers in the county.
Yes, these are all of these things are based on the eyewitness account of the poll watcher that was there with the Macias campaign on election night. So you could contact the campaign and ask them. Yes. I cannot remember the man's name. There were several. There was one there for a while, and then we got a second one in there, and I just don't know.
Have you spoken to the guy in the Gillespie County Clerk's office who might not be able to either camp about these irregularities?
No, I have not. But I don't think it's up to them. I don't think it's up to them.
One of the campaign?
I was there election night when all this happened.
You were at Gillespie?
No. I was there at the Macias headquarters, the party, victory party, celebration and all of that. And these were the reports that were coming in.
From Macias?
Yes, sir.
Has the Gillespie County Clerk commented on that?
I don't think this has to do with the Gillespie County Clerk. At this point, the Secretary of State, an unbiased person that doesn't have as much at stake as the Gillespie County Clerk does, someone that's unbiased and independent that should take a look at this.
Part of the district.
Right. Because, people that were there on the ground are now going to have to deal with law enforcement on this issue. Well, isn't that what the Secretary of State would do? It has to enforce the campaign law. So let's put it this way: the Secretary of State would be the first place that the citizens go to make a complaint, and from there they would be the ones that would determine if it would be the Attorney General or the Rangers or whoever in law enforcement. If there's been irregularities and things that they need to investigate, they will do so. But we, the citizens, I'm certainly happy to talk with the Gillespie County Chair and find out more what happened, and the county clerk who was supposed to be overseeing all of this. But frankly, I don't have any confidence that I'm going to get any straight answers. So that's why the Secretary of State really needs to be the one to handle this.
The Republican Party of Texas has been notified, and I left a message to them, and they called me back and said, this is absolutely insane that something like this would happen, and they said we might be calling you back for more information because they're looking into it. They're doing their own investigation because this type of thing should never be allowed to happen. Family members should never be allowed to count ballots.
Exactly.
It stinks.
Party of Texas.
Remember the name?
I just remember.
They just called him.
They called me back. A lady that called me back. I don't know her name.
I'm sure if you call Tina Benson, she would give you a
I may not be
comment.
quoting word for word, but she said this sounds bad. Something to that effect.
The appearance of impropriety,
Exactly.
especially since this was such a close race last time, because there were so many. There were accusations going back and forth. We had the recount last time. The society should have been upheld to the strongest degree. There should not have been violence. There should not have been partisans there who were not matched by the other side. The appearance of impropriety is
Exactly. Y'all. Okay, thank you. Anyone else that wants to talk to the press, feel free.
just qualified myself from helping out recount.
Do you have an example of that here?
Yeah, if you call Stoney Williams, former mayor here, he observed that it's a false liquor increaser.
Do you have any idea what he observed?
Yeah, he saw aggressive Macias supporters who actually are turning back elderly people who didn't want to have to deal with the aggressive campaign and just turn around and went back to their car.
And how did you spell your name?
Terry, C-A-R-Y, Roberts.
Thank you, sir.
I would like to get you, Becky, to talk to you about Cross Lutheran and what she was standing there.
Okay.
She was what he was talking about. Where are you from, sir?
I'm not just here. You're from
Harold Zeitung?
No, sir. I'm with Team Back. We do some publication things.
Anyway, the guy just told him that Tony Williams called the police that people that were at Cross Lutheran were impeding elderly people from voting. You were there most of the day. Is that not correct?
No, it is not correct. We were standing there talking to people, saying, out of the way, and if we would say, would you consider voting for Representative Macias, the proven conservative? And if they were interested, we would talk to them. We never held anyone there. And in fact, the Miller people were sitting in the street and cars had to go around them. In the drive, they were much closer to the voting place than we were. And we were then told that we were not allowed to even talk to people for a while. We could not do anything but stand there and smile.
Other people were in the street?
Yeah, they were in there was a drive-thru at school, and they had their chairs sitting in the drive-thru where the parents would drive up or the handicap would drive up and be let off there, and they had to go around these people with their cars to get in. They weren't far out of the street, but their chair, you know how much room a chair takes. And so we were standing on the edge of a wide sidewalk, and they told us, you can't stand on the sidewalk, you'll get in people's way. It's a huge sidewalk.
Thank you very much.
It was